Have you ever considered becoming a notary in Idaho, but you just don't know where to start? Maybe you're looking for a way to serve your community, or maybe you want to add a really valuable skill to your resume and generate some extra income on the side. Well, you are in exactly the right place. This step-by-step guide is going to take you from being a complete beginner to a certified notary public in no time. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're laying out a clear, chronological roadmap on how to become a notary in the great state of Idaho. We're going to completely demystify the process for you, breaking down the exact sequence of events so you can get your commission without any of the usual confusion or headaches. Okay, let's dive right into this roadmap. First, we'll cover role and eligibility requirements. Second, the bond and application process. Third, education and essential supplies. Fourth, responsibilities and best practices. And finally, commission renewal and conclusion. Section 1, role and eligibility requirements. Let's figure out if you actually meet the state's qualifications. To become an Idaho notary, you've got to meet a few basic requirements. You need to be at least 18 years old, a U.S. citizen or permanent legal resident, and you absolutely must be able to read and write English. But here is a really cool, unique feature of Idaho law. You don't necessarily have to live in Idaho to be an Idaho notary. As long as you have a place of employment or practice within the state, you can apply. So if you live just across the border in Washington or Oregon, but you commute to work in Idaho, you're completely eligible. However, there are a few disqualifying factors you need to be aware of. The Idaho Secretary of State reviews these applications on a case-by-case basis. They are looking for people with proven integrity, mainly because a notary's primary job is to deter fraud. So if you have prior felony convictions, specifically anything involving fraud, dishonesty, or deceit, or if you've had a notary commission revoked in another state, that's very likely going to disqualify you. Section 2, the bond and application process. This is where the step-by-step action really begins. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that big $10,000 figure. In Idaho, you can't just apply online and pay a tiny fee. Before you even touch the application, state law requires you to purchase a $10,000 surety bond. This bond covers your entire 6-year term. But keep in mind, this bond protects the public, not you, from financial harm if you happen to make a notarial error. So here is the exact 4-step sequence you need to follow. Step 1, buy that $10,000 bond from an authorized surety company, and make sure the name on your bond matches the name you plan to use on your application exactly. Step 2, complete the notary public application. Step 3, print it out and take your oath of office. Crucially, this oath has to be sworn to and notarized by an existing, commissioned Idaho notary. You literally cannot notarize your own application. Finally, step 4, mail your notarized application, the original bond, and a $30 filing fee to the Secretary of State. Oh, and quick tip, if you're a state, county, or city government employee, that $30 fee is actually waived. Section 3, education and essential supplies. Let's talk about what happens after your application gets approved. When your official certificate finally arrives in the mail, you might be wondering, wait, do I need to take a test? Well, I have fantastic news for you. Idaho doesn't require a mandatory exam or any paid classes to get your commission. That said, the Secretary of State offers a free online training course, and I highly recommend taking advantage of it. You're acting on behalf of the state now, and carelessness can leave you personally liable. Knowing the ins and outs of the law is absolutely crucial. Now, let's talk gear. There's a very important distinction here between what's legally required and what's just highly recommended. By law, you are absolutely required to buy an official inked notary stamp. It has to contain specific wording, like your name, the words Notary Public, State of Idaho, and your commission number. That is non-negotiable. On the flip side, a paper notary journal and errors and omissions insurance, often called E&O, are not legally required in Idaho, but they are strongly recommended best practices. A journal is your paper trail if a notarization is ever questioned, and E&O insurance actually protects you financially, whereas your bond, remember, only protects the public. Let's break down the financial realities so you know exactly what to expect out of pocket. Honestly, the cost to become a notary in Idaho is super reasonable. You've got the $30 application fee, the surety bond premium, which usually runs between $30 and $50 for the whole 6 years, and your mandatory stamp, which is typically $15 to $25. All told, your estimated total cost is roughly between $85 and $145. That is a really small investment for a highly respected 6-year commission. Section 4, responsibilities and best practices. Time to look at the serious legal duties of the role. And this brilliantly illustrates the absolute #1 rule of being a notary. The signer must personally appear before you at the time of the notarial act. There are literally 0 exceptions to this rule. It is physically impossible to witness an event if it doesn't take place right in front of you, right? Notarizing a document without the signer physically present is pure negligence and a lightning-fast way to lose your commission. You've also got to maintain strict impartiality. To prevent fraud and make sure your notarial acts hold up in court, Idaho law is very clear on situations you have to avoid. You cannot notarize your own signature, you cannot notarize for your spouse, and you cannot notarize any documents where you have a direct beneficial interest. Basically, if you stand to gain from the transaction in any way, you have to step aside and let a completely impartial notary handle the whole shebang. So, what about compensation? If you're offering your services to the public, you need to know what you're allowed to charge. Idaho sets a maximum fee of exactly $5 per standard notarial act, like an acknowledgement, a jurat, or administering a verbal oath. Now, you can negotiate travel fees separately if you're a mobile notary driving around town, but the actual notarial act itself is legally capped at $5. Section 5, Commission Renewal and Conclusion. Let's look at the longevity of your new role. So how long does this all last? Idaho actually offers a really generous 6-year commission term, which is tied for the longest in the entire country. What you do need to know, though, is that there isn't some simple renewal button to click. When your 6 years are up, you essentially start the application process all over again. You buy a new bond, fill out a new application, and pay the fee. You can start that process up to 90 days before your current commission expires, so you don't have any gaps in your service. Now, what if you want to take your traditional paper commission to the next level? Idaho is very forward-thinking with technology. Once you hold a traditional commission, you can add remote online notary or RON authorization. You just notify the Secretary of State through their portal about the approved tamper-evident software you plan to use. There's no extra bond required for this, and it lets you securely notarize documents for people remotely over a secure audio-video feed. It's a real game changer. Well, we've covered the entire roadmap today, from eligibility to bonds, the application, and your official duties. So, are you ready to begin your Idaho notary journey? What questions do you still have about the process or the supplies you might need? Drop a comment below. We would absolutely love to hear from you and help you out. This video is for informational purposes only. Requirements to become a notary can change. Please consult the Idaho Secretary of State's website or a legal expert for the most current information. But as you think about stepping into this vital public office, ask yourself, how could adding this official state seal to your professional toolkit open doors you haven't even considered yet? Thanks so much for joining me today, and happy learning.